the goods and services market and the money market, a numerical example, which will eventually lead towards the ISLM model. Okay, so consider the following macroeconomic model. Okay, now, some of these equations, some of these functions pertain to the goods and services market and some to the money market. As I go through my explanation here, I'll tell you exactly which one pertains to the goods and services market and which one pertains to the money market. So let's start with the top equation here. Well, you've seen this before, right? Y, national income or GDP, is equal to consumption, total consumption, plus investment, total investment, plus government spending, plus NX. NX is net exports. So let's see the second function, C, meaning total consumption, is equal to 100. So what is 100? Well, 100 is autonomous consumption. Consumption not linked, not related to the ups and downs of the economic cycle. 0.9 right there, that's the marginal propensity to consume out of disposable income, all right? And together, these two terms, 100 plus 0.9 times YD, constitute total consumption. The first part, autonomous consumption, and the second part, non-autonomous. All right, now the third function. The third function has two terms. The $200 billion that is associated with autonomous physical investments. Physical investments not linked, not based on, not dependent on the fluctuations of the business cycle or any other or any other variable. All right. So I, total physical investments, is equal to 200, and again 200 is autonomous investments, plus the second term, which is negative 500i. All right, that other part of physical investments is linked to total physical investments. Whenever interest rates go up or down, investments go up or down in a negative way. This negative sign tells us there's an inverse relationship. In other words, if interest rates go up, then physical investments go down, and the opposite is also true. Okay, and the fourth function is net exports, and you see the 100 there. Well, that's autonomous exports. Autonomous, not linked to the fluctuations of GDP nor any other events. All right. that second term, that's negative, and as you see, that term is 0.12y, and it's negative. Okay. In other words, if well, first of all, what is 0.12? Not negative, just 0.12. That's the marginal propensity to import out of national income, out of GDP. And that's linked to net exports in a negative way. All right? All right. In other words, if national income goes up, if Y increases, then the question becomes what happens to imports? Well, imports will go up, and the next question is, well, what's going to happen to net exports if exports are autonomous? Well, the answer is net exports will go down. So this is the cause, and that's the effect. And this negative sign tells us that it's a inverse effect. All right. This other term, negative 500i, well, that's that means that interest rates also play a role in the determination of net exports in a negative way. So let's test this. If the interest rate goes up, well, if interest rates go up, what happens to capital flows? Will there be inflows or outflows? Well, there will be inflows of funds by the international financial community, and as a result, the exchange rate will go up. And as a result, what will happen to exports? Well, higher interest rates, which increase the exchange rate, have a tendency to make the goods and services of the exporting country, the one with the higher exchange rate, well, it's a negative effect. In other words, exports would fall, and in turn, that would mean NX, net exports, would fall. All right. So here we see a negative relationship, right? Interest rates going up, net exports going down. All right. Now, let's skip over this part here. Let me put this in red. All right. I'm going to skip over this part. All right. All right. Back to blue. So what else? Government spending is 200, and government spending, as you see, is autonomous. Also, you see a personal income tax rate of 20%, and these functions, these identities that I have checked, they're all related to the goods and services market. All right? Now, in red, what is related to the money market? Well, what's related to the money market is the M equation. M is the nominal money supply, And also these two are related. These two are also related to the money market. All right. So let's see. M, which is the nominal money supply, is 800. P is said to be, well, the implication here, P is always equal to 1, means that P is constant, right? All right, so M, the nominal money supply, P, the general price level, always constant, and M over P, well, that constitutes the real money supply, all right? Now in this corner here, let me take apart L. L is the equation for money demand. So you remember L, money demand, is equal to K times Y minus H times I. So what's K here? Well, K is 0.8. Y. What's H? 2000, followed by I. All right. So again, the ones marked in red are applicable to the money market, and the functions terms marked in blue are applicable to the goods and services market. All right. In this slide, what I want to do is I want to derive the model equation, and here is the solution. This is the model equation. All right, so how did we get there? Well, we start off with the following. Y is equal to autonomous consumption plus MPC times Y minus TY. Okay? What's Y minus TY? Well, that's disposable income plus autonomous physical investments minus 500I. This is the part of physical investments which are linked to total investments in a negative way, plus G, autonomous, plus, sorry about that, I'm going to continue it on the next line, plus autonomous exports minus 0.12, which is the marginal propensity to import out of national income. And there's another term which negatively links the interest rate to net export, and that's negative 500I. Okay, so this is our starting point, and if we work all of this out, what we are going to get, I'm not gonna take you through all of the steps, but basically what we're doing is we're solving for y. All right, we want to have a model equation which is stated in y form, and here what I want to draw out of this part here is the following. All right, it's autonomous aggregate expenditures. So what are autonomous aggregate expenditures? It's autonomous C plus autonomous I plus autonomous G plus autonomous X. And all of that, well, I don't want to put the numbers in yet, all right? I'm just talking generally speaking, all right? So that's autonomous aggregate expenditures. So here, I have to make a correction here. I'll use red. Here, the correction is that there should be a bar on top of it, right? Meaning autonomous. Okay. So back to blue. So if we take this equation here with this notion, the 3 dots meaning I'm continuing, that basically means that if we set the model equation in Y form, we get autonomous aggregate expenditures minus 1,000. Now, how do we get 1,000? Well, what we're doing is we're adding this term, negative 500i, to this term, another 500i. It's just a coincidence that they're equal, all right? And what do we get? What is negative 500i plus negative 500i? It's negative 1,000i. And that's how the denominator is going to look like. All right? Excuse me, that's how the numerator is going to look like. This is the numerator. Now in the denominator, it'll look like this. 1 minus MPC, which is MPS, plus MPCT, plus the marginal propensity to import. All right. So this is the model equation. All right. We've dealt with model equations before. What's new is the addition of this term here, negative 1,000i, right? Okay. Next. So here what we're going to be calculating using the model equation is y. We already have the answer. So how do we get there? Well, we go back to the model equation. I have to make this adjustment there. Autonomous aggregate expenditures minus 1,000i divided by 1 minus MPC plus MPCT plus MPI. All right. So let's start with the numerator. Autonomous aggregate expenditures. Autonomous consumption, that's 100. Autonomous investments, so that's 300. Autonomous exports, that's 400. And then autonomous government spending, so that makes it 600. So autonomous aggregate expenditures are 600 minus 1,000i. And what do we have in the denominator? Well, 1 minus MPC is 0.1. MPC times T, that's 0.18. And then MPI, that's 0.12. That gives us 0.4. So the denominator is equal to 0.4. So now we divide 600 by 0.4 and we get 1,500. And then we divide negative 1,000i by 0.4 and we get negative 2,500i. So this is the answer. All right, that's the solution. GDP, or national income, is equal to 1,500 minus 2,500i. This equation, it not only represents the goods and services market, this equation is also the equation for the IS curve. But I'll have a lot more to say about it later. All right. So that's how we got the answer. Okay. In this slide, the question is, how do we calculate the interest rate? And as you see, we already have the answer. So, how did we get this answer? Well, the interest rate is derived not in the goods and services market. The interest rate is derived from the money market. So we have to go to the money market. And, well, the money market. In the money market, we have M over P is equal to L. And in turn, L is equal to KY minus HI. All right. M over P, that's the real money supply, is equal to money demand, which is KY minus HI. Okay. Now, what I have done here is I have set the equation to the interest rate. All right. Okay. So we're solving for the interest rate. So let's see. What can we do here? M over P minus K times Y divided by negative H is equal to the interest rate. All right. Again, what I've done is I've taken this equation and I've turned it into interest rate is equal to. All right. Now we're ready to put the numbers. So what is the nominal money supply? It's 800. P is 1, so we don't have to worry about it. What's K? Well, here is K. It's 0.8, and obviously we keep the Y. What's negative H? Well, H is 2000. It happens to be negative, so it's negative 2000. And all of that is equal to the interest rate. So 800 divided by negative 2000 gives us negative 0.4, and negative 0.8y divided by negative 2000 gives us a positive 0. How many zeros? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then a 4y. And all of that is equal to the interest rate. All right? So this is how we calculated this answer here. All right? Now, you're not going to be surprised if I told you that this equation, I, the interest rate, is equal to negative 0.4 plus 0.0004y, is the equation for the money market. In other words, it's the equation for the LM curve, which is part of the ISLM model. So our next step is to calculate GDP. And as you see here, we already have an answer. Y is equal to 1,250. So how do we get that answer? Well, we're going to have to work with these two equations, right? The first one, Y is equal to 1,500 minus 2,500I. Well, that comes from the goods and services market. And the second equation, I, is equal to negative 0.4 plus 0.0004y. That comes from the money market. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take the I equation and substitute it into the GDP equation, or the Y equation. Well, that's simple enough. So remember, we're calculating Y. All right, so let's start here. Y is equal to 1,500 minus 2,500. I am using this equation here, right? It's negative 2,500I. And what I'm doing is I am taking the I equation and substituting it there. So that's going to give me negative 2,500 times negative 0.4 plus 0.1234y. All right. The next step, 1,500 plus 1,000. That's what we get when we multiply negative 2,500 times negative 0.4. And the third term is negative 1y. That's the answer we get when we multiply negative 2,500 times 0.0004y. All right, the next step is the following. 1,500 plus 1,000 is equal to 2,500 minus 1y. this becomes 2y is equal to 2,500. So y is equal to 1,250. So that's our y answer. All right. So that's how we derive. That's how we calculate national income. In the next slide, I'm going to be calculating the interest rate. All right. So in this slide, what we want to do is we want to calculate the interest rate. All right. So we're going to use the interest rate equation, which we calculated from the money market. I, the interest rate, is equal to negative 0.4 plus 0.0004y. All right. So the interest rate is equal to negative 0.4 plus 0.0004, and we've already calculated y. Y is equal to 1,250. So what is the equilibrium interest rate, which applies both to the money market and the goods and services market? It's 0.1, which translate 0.1, excuse me, which translates into 10%. All right. So we have two solutions. Y, equilibrium Y, which applies to both the goods and services market and the money market, is 1,250, and the interest rate, the equilibrium interest rate, which applies both to the money market and the goods and services market, is 10% or 0.1. Okay, and I think what I want to do now is graphical stuff. Just an overview of how we would graph these equilibrium points. Side by side, I'm going to place the goods and services market and the money market, and then between them I'm going to squeeze the ISLM model, because after all, the ISLM model is a summary of the goods and services market and the money market. Okay, so let's see now. Goods and services market here, and on the other side the money market. All right. So aggregate expenditures 0 Y. The 45-degree helpline, aggregate expenditures are equal to Y. The origin of the aggregate expenditure curve, I'll come back to it. Aggregate expenditure curve, let's call it 1. The origin is going to be autonomous aggregate expenditures 1. which is equal to autonomous consumption plus autonomous investments plus autonomous government spending plus autonomous exports for a total of 600. Okay. Here is equilibrium, E1. This is the equilibrium aggregate expenditure value, which is equal to 1,250. You can look at aggregate expenditures 1 as the demand, consumer demand, plus the demand by firms, meaning I, plus the demand by the government, plus the demand by foreigners or exports. The other side of equilibrium is GDP. Let's call it Y1, and its value is 1,250. And you can think of this side as the supply side. This is what is provided by the economy. Okay, now in red, equilibrium is the significance is aggregate expenditures are equal to Y. All right, now back to black. All right, let's look at the money market. Interest rate, real balances, this vertical line, M over P, and of course this is L. Okay, so equilibrium, let's call it E1, the equilibrium interest rate, which we have calculated to be 10%, and the equilibrium real balance level. How do we get that? Well, let's see. On top, the nominal money supply, 800. The general price level, 1. It's predetermined, in other words, it's constant. So the real money supply is 800, which means that real balances are 800. Okay, now red. What is the significance of this equilibrium in the money market? Well, the significance is that M over P, the real money supply, is equal to the money demand. All right, and don't forget that money demand is stated this way. L is equal to KY minus HI. Y is national income, which is derived from the goods and services market. I is the interest rate, which is derived from the money market. K is a coefficient, which measures the sensitivity of money demand, L, to changes in national income. H is a coefficient which measures the sensitivity of money demand when it comes to changes in the interest rate. Okay. Now, back to black, and now here somewhere. This is the ISLM model, like that. All right. I, that refers to physical investments. S, that refers to total savings. Total savings being SP, that's private savings of the households, plus SG, these are governmental savings, plus SR, these are savings of the foreigners. L refers to money demand. M refers to money supply. Right, back to red. IS, the IS curve, that is a summary of the goods and services market, and LM, that's a summary of the money market. All right, back to black. On the y-axis, we have the interest rate. On the x-axis, we have GDP. Y comes from the goods and services market, and I comes from the money market. The IS curve is normally negatively sloped, and the LM curve is normally positively sloped. And this would be equilibrium. Let's call it E1. And this is 10%. Where does it come from? Well, it comes from here. The GDP level is 1,250. Where does this come from? It comes from here. And let's use a different color. All right. And what's true of equilibrium in the ISLM model? Well, two things. Aggregate expenditures are equal to national income. That's from the goods and services market. And from the money market, M over P is equal to money demand. So equilibrium in the ISLM model means that there is a simultaneous equilibria in the goods and services market and the money market. And we'll leave it at that. My next video will be about the ISLM model. I'll start off by explaining why the IS curve is negatively sloped and why the LM curve is positively sloped. So stay tuned. We're not finished.